is Anya Devine here at Cockenzie, where I'm going to be doing the flower painting workshop next week. Still spaces if anyone wants to come. I'm here with Norma and we're painting these flowers. And I just wanted to say that before starting, I find it really helpful to already begin to visualise the space that the flowers might occupy on the piece of paper. Because sometimes when I'm talking I can't hear a blessed thing. That's why I'm kind of happy to have the paper that size as well, to leave it that size, because that shooting off bit of eucalyptus could be part of it still with the big piece of paper, if I'm painting it life size, you know, which I think I will. And then it'll also be interesting, because it means that it'll be asymmetrical. It won't be like the pot will be further to the right, and that I think will add a bit of interest. This is the story of my life, by the way. I'm trying to straighten out the microphone so that you can hear me. Honest to God, do you think it's likely I'll get to the end of this?
Do you want me to do that?
Well, I imagine that you would probably do, I think anyone would do a better job at this. It seems to be something. Okay, thanks. I get my water.
It's like the Christmas tree light.
Oh, that's good. It is something I have a mental block over, all right, because I regularly lose it, forget it, and that's one of the most regular comments on my YouTube is that they can't hear me. And I just think, so if you can't hear me today, it's because Norma has unravelled the blessed microphone for me. Thanks ever so much.
Don't have your expectations too high.
Even a little bit more than what I do myself would be good. Right. I'm going to turn you down here now because I'm going to put some paint out in my palettes. And maybe it's no harm too to show you my table. Because although it might seem that there's only chaos happening here, there is actually some order. I really value order, and so I'm going to have a couple of tables, one for my water, and I'm going to put the paint out here on this one. I might use some collage, but I don't need it to be sitting on the table, taking up valuable real estate. And I will keep the stencils there because they're often, I sometimes might forget about them, and actually they're a handy thing to have local. Doing great things. Yes, the microphone is actually getting a new lease of life. Now the paint bag here. And glue. No, glue. Okay. So I've got quite big paintbrushes, but you know, you'll end up, I find this one, these are very cheap brushes, you know, there's 3 for $5.99 I think. That's one of them, it's another one, and there's a smaller one. You can get them at the range. But this is the one that I like to use mostly to start with.
Oh,
fantastic. Okay, so we've got sound. I've got my wood. That's good. That's really impressive, Norma, and maybe you can help me rolling it up. That it's not going to happen again. I don't know why every fucking time it ends up in a ball. I kind of liken it to life, you know, you have to regularly untangle things. The same fucking stuff. I know, I shouldn't say that. That's not really characterizing all of my life, but you know, some of it. Now, so colour. So I'm looking at the, looking at the still life and considering the colours that I want to use. Like the first colour I think that would be handy there is, and I'll just put it down again, Payne's Grey. Payne's Grey is, it's almost like black really, but I think it's a helpful one, say for the background pillar now. It'll get me there quickly. Yeah, so that's Payne's Grey. And you can use all of this paint once I'm done with it, like you can use what's on the palette. And then I've got Van Dyke Brown, the dark brown, and a dark blue, the ultramarine blue I think I'll use. Van Dyke brown and ultramarine blue together, or any dark brown and any dark blue really will help to make a colour that's not dissimilar to the Payne's grey, you know, but it's helpful to have something that you make yourself, that you can make it more brown or more blue. I might end up using that combination to do the pot. And then it's kind of helpful too having a couple of palettes so that I can put the paint out on one and hold the other to mix the colour. So what did I put out there? That kind of Wedgwood, no, it's called powder blue. Powder blue, I just find that that's a good colour too, maybe just for the line dividing the vase even. And then we've got our purples. So I think like the last time we focused, didn't we, on the dark first?
Yes.
Did we?
Yes.
I don't know. Anyway, we've got two different purples. I've got the darker one and the lighter one. And we'll just see. I see how I go with that. But my inkling is that I might end up using something like this stencil to describe the purple flowers. Maybe. We'll see. There's some more stencils there actually. I'll put them all up there. And of course the greens then. I did a little bit of organising last night at home, and instead of bringing 5 bags today, I've put in there what I need. I thought, for God's sake, Anya, give yourself a break and don't be hauling stuff around from here to there and then only using one thing out of each bag, you know. It is good to try and be organised, isn't it? I know that David Hockney's got someone who does it for him.
Yeah.
It must be wonderful.
Yeah.
Did you notice that too?
No, I don't. I mean, I think if I could fill one bag with my stuff, that would be upsetting.
But did you notice that David Hockney has someone who helps him? Had you seen that?
No, I didn't.
All right.
But it doesn't surprise me. Cause
Yeah,
I think he's someone who strikes me as being very organised and would want his environment to be organised.
Yeah, and I think kind of values himself too almost enough to know, right, I need help here.
Yes.
Or like I like that about him. Yeah. Maybe he's learned it the hard way, I don't know. And I could be just making all of that up, but I have seen that he has got someone to help him. Now I'm looking at the setup to see, you know, as I look at my colours here and look at what's here, I think maybe just the yellow ochre, and I'll bring the white out later on, but for the first wee while I'm going to leave the white separate because there's not enough space here not to get, the white might get stuck in other colours and then it goes all pastel-y. So I'm not going to bother putting that out for a wee while. Yellow ochre for the centre of the daisies, maybe. That might be a good colour. Yeah, I've got some here. And I'll get the white ready. I'll get the white ready so that I know. There we are. Alright, so let's see now. I put out the hooker's green and the olive green, but I didn't put out any sap green. I think maybe the lemon yellow or the cadmium yellow might mix with one of those greens too, maybe for the stems, the lighter bits. Do you know what? I'm going to just leave it sitting there and see if I need it as I work, because I feel like there's already enough now out there. I'm not used to having such a lovely long lead. It's usually a lump of tangle that I stick in my trousers. Great stuff. All right. So here we are. So there are the colours put out. I know now that you can't see very clearly on the screen, but you'll have a photograph of the still life set up, Norma, and anyone who wants a photo can let me know and I can send it to you. And then I suppose just a little reminder to shake it off, to kind of, I find like it's really useful to me. As someone said, you're activating your chi. I was at the demonstration at Loch Green a couple of weeks ago and someone said that to me and I said, you know, I think you're right. It's something about dissipating fear and just really shaking it off. So you want to, unless you're feeling like a right exhibitionist, you're not doing it right. Like, you really want to just be giving it laldi, as they say. Okay. Now, there's something about that brings confidence as well, I think. Okay. If you're already confident, there's no need for all of that bouncing around. It's fine. Okay, let's see now. So I think maybe I could start with I'm going to start with that panel in the background. So I'm just picking up some of the Payne's grey and noticing what it looks like against the background. I think a touch of that powder blue into it might work, and a little bit of yellow ochre. So what I'm looking at is the pillar behind the flowers, and I want to use the masking tape. There it is. I'm going to put the masking tape on. Now remember, I was talking about visualizing the space that the flowers are going to occupy. I really like the way that the flowers are highlighted by the dark grey panel behind. So where I'm standing, I want to bring them slightly further to the right so that really you won't see them at all in the video now. But that's kind of the area that I'm focusing on mostly. And in the end, I'm not so bothered if I don't get all of that eucalyptus in, because I feel like this can hold its own, whether that's shooting off the page or not. But my intention is to include the eucalyptus, all right. Okay, so I'm going to start with the panel of grey. And in order for it to read as a vertical, I'm going to put on a bit of masking tape. And I'm going to put a touch of water on the brush. Now, it's quite warm in this room, and sometimes acrylic can dry quite quickly. You see how it's a bit hairy already? So I'm going to make up a bit more of that colour. So using again the Payne's grey, a little bit of the powder blue, and the yellow ochre. And I'm holding the palette up so that I can see the colour I'm aiming for as I'm making it. And I've got one eye closed in order that I can see again the colour, you know, and see that it's true to what's on the palette for me. Okay, and just dip the brush into the water again. It's helpful to know the consistency of the paint. Sometimes you won't know until you try it on the paper, because each room is different. Like, you can't tell that. So I'd regularly enough dip the tip of it into water if I wanted to go a little bit further. But I wouldn't be wetting the whole lot suddenly, because then you get, unless you want all these runs and drips. And sometimes you won't have complete control, and that's good too. Make chance essential is another thing. So if something happens where there is suddenly way more fluidity than you planned, consider how you can work with that. So it's not as though you can kind of see that everything is meant somehow. And as I do that now, I feel like I want to find where maybe the tabletop will be. I suppose I'll bring it down a bit more actually. So this is going to be wetter now. Let me see what will happen. I think that's okay. They've lovely new paintwork here. God help them. But they know me anyway, and I think it's wipeable. So we'll be all right. Okay, so I wanted to bring down the background to the tabletop, right? And the next thing I might do then, I'll take off this. And I suppose, well, let's see, I could kind of put it there, so just to let myself know that the background comes down to about there. And I might even do something, I suppose I could do a little something, even a touch of green maybe. With my eyes half closed, it's generally, I think, green back there. Just something to let us know that that's the tabletop there, and there's the background. I could just let that be like that. You know, just to have a consistent kind of ledge. Okay, and I'm also considering, having already painted this now, I want to maybe, before it's completely dry, I want to lift off the shape, really focusing on where this daisy is now. There's 1, 2, 3 daisies. Oh, but they'll be lower than that. So the pot is kind of extending. Half of it is below the table, the shelf. And then there's one daisy here, another daisy here, and then the third one turns that way here. I'm going to lift that off when I can, a little bit, just to indicate the position of that daisy. I kind of like the sparkles around it too. Like, I don't know if I want them all the way up, but if I did, I could lift it off more. But for now, I think I just want it sparkly around that daisy itself. And that's a bit of making chance essential, because I didn't anticipate that happening. You want to find ways to keep yourself excited, you know, and to be surprised. This is it. Do you want to get a chair, Norma? Are you all right? Yeah.
I get excited by all the mistakes I make. Right.
Oh, really? Well, and if you can, see if you can kind of, like, maybe you don't need this, but I need to be my own cheerleader. When I'm working, I need to be saying, "You're doing great, that's fine. Oh, look at that, look what happened there. What'll we do with that feckin' thing?"
Have to turn it around.
Yeah, there's a bit of reframing. Yeah, I do find that I need to reframe, and it's a very good lesson for life for me. You know, as soon as something happens, to see, I recognize now that there's no benefit to seeing it as a disaster, the thing that's happened. So if I can at all find something good in it, that's what I try and aim for. Now, I'm going to put on the background. You know, I think when I half close my eyes, really the pot of flowers is mostly, the darkest part is the greens in between the daisies and things. And if I explain those sooner rather than later, that's another big thing to have described. So we've got the big thing of the grey behind. The idea of the ledge is explained by its absence, really, by the colour coming up to meet it. If I put in something for the green, and I'm mixing a bit of ultramarine blue, a bit of Payne's grey even, into the green to knock the colour out of it. As I look at it, I don't want it to be that green. It's a darker green that I'm seeing here. Now we've got the daisy sticking out there. The other daisy is going to be there. The pot will be below that. And then here-ish is the first area of green that I'm noticing, you know. And that'll help me to outline too the couple of daisies that are there. Okay. Keep the paper towel handy. I can see that when I do the crosshatch thing, there's drips running off it. Don't really want it to be too drippy, so I've just dried the brush by squeezing the bristles and maybe pick up a bit more of the paint. And with my eyes half closed again, I'm just going to kind of find where the dark generally lies. And these greens will extend into the background there too. I'm just going to close that so it's not so noisy. Let's see now when I stand back, and this is another thing, Norma, that's really helpful, is to stand back often. So I want to lift out the daisy that's here and the daisy that's here. I'm going to do the pot, and then I think I'll let you kind of have a stab at the setup, and then I'll come back and do the daisies in more detail. Does that sound all right? Okay. I feel like it's important to kind of get a balance, isn't it, between explaining something and then when there's enough vigour to do it yourself to kind of harness that and get going. Like, so I'll just lift off this is quite good to be able to lift off. I really love that capacity with this paper and acrylic.
Slightly shiny.
It's a slightly shiny paper, yeah. And see how it's a bit green? I want it to not be so green there, so I'm just turning it to a clean bit and lifting off even more. And as I'm looking at the daisy, so, you know, I'm already beginning to find some bit of a shape, yeah. And I think too that it'll, depends on where I'm standing with the pole behind, but I think this one, I want it to come over the pillar. So when I stand here, that's what I'm seeing, that it's overlapping the pillar as well as the green. And it's about as high, so this daisy to me is about as high as that one, maybe slightly lower. And then there's one that's shooting up the way. And those petals will be interesting to describe later on, maybe with actual paint rather than lifting off. So I think it'll be a combination of lifting off and applying the paint that we'll do here. And I said I would only do the pot, but as I look at that now, I think it might be helpful to put a touch of purple onto this and just swiftly, you know, as soon as I notice something, like to get the colour in. and the dark purple wasn't cutting it on its own. I felt I needed to put something else in, and even maybe, gosh. So I've started with the dark purple, the light purple, and now ultramarine blue, because I feel like it's a bluish, isn't it? And still always keeping an eye on where I am. So here's the daisy here. Oh, there's another daisy lifting out there. There's another one that'll be occupying this space here, kind of. You know that one? And then that'll help me to negotiate where really the purple shapes need to be. And I know that I don't have to set it in stone at this stage. It's really just to kind of get a feeling of the flowers and the position of the purple in relation to the position of the pillar, the position of the other daisies. And with a touch of the hooker's green and the ultramarine blue, I might just do a few little indications just for my own peace of mind, to feel like I've not stopped before I've got to the top of it, like before anchoring down with the vase. And this can be left like that, or I might try and get a bit more the feeling of the eucalyptus. But sometimes you can get away with doing very little. And even just the fact that it's a slightly bluer green, I think, will make this read as though it's the same as that. This one that's shooting off that way. Okay. All right. And now our pot. And what I like to do when describing anything that has a clean edge to it, I find it's very helpful to put down. I'm just trying to locate the edge of the pot in relation to the flowers above it. And I think maybe it's halfway through that one, so maybe about there. And I'm not saying that these are gospel, but they're close enough, purples. I like to be able to find the edge so that I can be vigorous when I explain the colour within the edge. Now, the other side then, so this, it might be that that flower will come over a little bit further this way, so that the pot doesn't read as being too wide. So this is the thing, like you can adjust as you go. It's not like you've messed up something entirely. If the flower needs to be shifted, shift the flower. You know, it's all right. And that's what painting is. It's constantly shifting edges until you feel what's true, kind of, you know, until you find what's true for you from your angle. So I would believe your eyes and do your best to faithfully represent what it is that you're seeing. Yeah, and it's okay actually, because this flower can afford to move a little bit to the left in relation to this one. So I'm okay with that. Usually if you follow what feels right or what looks right, really believing your eyes, you'll find that it fits like jigsaw pieces with the rest too, usually. Okay. So I think I'm noticing that the edge of the vase on this side is going to cut through a few of the petals on the flower above. And this, you know, the edge of that is just about hitting the petals that are here. And this flower is going to sit below the rim of it. And sure, I might as well locate roughly where the bottom of the jug will be. I'm not wanting to do a precise geometric shape entirely, but I wanted to have enough clarity of enough of a clear position that I recognise what it is, you know. I think I'll put out a bit more kitchen paper. I like having the kitchen paper on the table to dry the brush, and it's good having lots of water as well, because you see the paper towel is the brush is quite wet, is quite green still, so I can put it into there if I want it not to be so green. It's not really that critical with the grey that I'm going to be doing, but if you had green on your brush and you were wanting to do something really white, then it would be worth having, you know, dipping it into the other pot of water. So now I'm going to try and find a colour. In actual fact, it's not too far away from that green, the pot. So I'm putting some Payne's grey into it, and I think a bit of yellow ochre. I don't want it to be very similar to the background grey. No. And it's warmer, isn't it? a bit more yellow, exactly that. So the yellow ochre, I think, is a good colour. And of course the top and bottom are slightly different, but I think they're close enough that I can first even almost use the same colour, maybe with a slight adjustment. A bit of brown into it might make the bottom colour. So I'm using the Van Dyke brown to describe the colour that's down there. A little bit more of the brown I think I need. And I'm not too worried about the blue line. We can do that with a bit of collage maybe, or we could do it with the powder blue, you know, that powder blue paint. If you can see it there, that colour. That powder blue could be a line through it. So I think I'm first wanting to get the feeling of the, and I think there's something with the texture of that that's maybe wanting my hand to print into it to get a feeling of the texture of the lower bit. And it's a bit darker to the left, so I'm just putting a bit more paint on the left side, a bit more of the Van Dyke brown and a touch of ultramarine blue into that Van Dyke brown, because I think it's a little bit cooler there. Okay, and I'm kind of okay with that, although maybe a little bit more bluish, not brown but blue, could be put in there. I think I find my hands know better than other things, you know, better than the brush maybe. My hand is kind of helpful to. Okay, I'm conscious of taking. Are you still okay? I mean, almost ready now to do something. And I suppose the thing that I could do here is with the damp paper towel made into a drawing tool for myself. I can lift out some of those petals that are coming down over the rim. And even there's a drip coming down, but I think that'll be quite nice actually. I didn't expect it, but I think it'll be welcome enough. And I'll lift off this then and see if it's starting to feel like the vase for me. And like I said, with the purples and the eucalyptus, you can get away with very little really. And maybe once you've set the scene, we can do a bit more negotiating to describe the daisies in more detail with applying paint and modelling. But I think there's a lot to be said for starting with something that's a wild goose. You know, you can make a wild goose tame, but you can't make a tame goose wild. So starting with the sense of freedom. And I think that's all that I'm going to do for the moment. And we'll put a board up and see what happens for you. Is that okay? And you can go back more than I was going back. I wasn't standing back enough there. So I'll just take the video around just to see my viewpoint. That was what I was looking at. Yeah, from that point of view, I'm just showing where the flowers are located. Might be kind of helpful. I'll take a screenshot of this for you as well. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so thanks for watching and look forward to step 2. See ya.